Hi guys, I'm Chris.
And Mike.
And welcome back to this week's No Limits, a Mitch Rapp Podcast. How you doing this week, Mike?
Ding, 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 ding. The Ambassador program is here.
Now I know how you're doing. You're doing really good.
The gears are turning, man. I'm working on this application.
Oh, I already submitted mine, man.
Oh, you turned. So I'm stewing over it. I'm being very cerebral. I'm trying to craft this one.
All right, so you want to hear what I put then?
Yeah.
It wasn't super cerebral. It was being as though I am one half of the only Mitch Rapp podcast. I think I have shown that I am a Mitch Rapp superfan, and therefore I should be a Vince Flynn ambassador. That's what I said.
It's
Maybe I won't get it. Maybe I won't get the ambassador program. I did say I think what they want someone who loves the books and is present on social media.
They want the socials, yeah.
I have the gram. They can see the gram. I'm getting new followers like every day, which is good. At least two. I think we're up to almost like 300 followers, so that's good.
Man, you can't quantify the love of rap. You can't quantify that. That has that just.
I just thought that me saying like I literally dedicate
countless hours
that I don't need to this story. Like, therefore, like, come on, no other ambassador's doing this.
I don't know how I roped you in to this project of the podcast. I mean, you got the kids. You just moved into a house. Or I think you closed on a house like yesterday. You got your second doctorate degree. Now you have 8 doctorates from 5 universities. Just one. Okay. I thought you were working on the second one. But you're researching at the NIH, saving us from pandemic 2.0. How do you do it? Oh, man. Raising 14 kids. It's crazy. It's crazy.
A lot of coffee. Yeah. No, so I figured, me saying that I do all this in my free time, what little free time I have, just shows how much of a Mitch Rapp super fan I am.
You know what? I'm going to write a limerick about you.
Oh, write a limerick about me?
I'm going to write a limerick about you.
I don't know if you should do that, so we'll see.
Speaking of limericks, and by the way, the Ambassador Program, vinceflynn.com. Get your application in if you want to help promote all things Vince, Kyle, and the next rap book, Enemy at the Gates. And you will have a chance through the program at vinceflynn.com of winning an advanced reader's copy and bragging rights that you are an ambassador of, what is this, the 4th Mitch Rapp Ambassador program?
Yeah, I think, they started it for Enemy at the State, right? So maybe it's the 4th or 5th.
Red War, Lethal Agent, or was Red War the first?
Might have been Red War,
Agent,
yeah. So
Power. Not sure.
I don't know, but it's been great. And you can get to read the book 2 months early.
Right.
A month and a half early, whatever.
Incredible. So, what a program by David and crew. Like, genius. Just he said from the beginning he wants to get the fans involved. They're the ones who sell the books or buy the books, and without the fans, it's nothing. So kudos to him in getting us involved, taking our input, listening to us, and really involving the herd.
That's what I'll do. If I don't get in the program, I'm just going to hit up the bus and be like, send me that arc, please.
Oh, yeah. If you don't get into the program, I'm writing Cornell and having the president of Cornell put in a phone call and advocate on your behalf.
There's got to be some Mitch Rapp fans at Cornell we can get to call. So
I don't know about that. But there might be some at Brown because, Rapp was a grad student at Brown, apparently. Or wait, according to the movie, American Assassin.
According to the movie, yes.
I don't know if that's a reliable source or not, but...
Yeah, so we are changing it up a little bit. So, one, we wanted to really dedicate a little bit more time to our second half of the pod because we feel like this is a very seminal book, and we have a couple things we want to add to non-traditional things that we don't have in our normal second part. So, we're pushing that back a week, but what we have instead is a breakdown of the movie. So we're talking about American Assassin. Before we get into some of the specifics of that, just want to shout out that we are going to do our June giveaway is going to be a Blu-ray copy of American Assassin. So if you want to be entered into that drawing, you can sign up to be a patron all of our current patrons are already entered into that. So
Yep.
you can go to patreon.com/MitchRappPod if you want to join us, help support the podcast, and enter in a chance to win a copy. And, going forward, we're doing these different monthly giveaways. So, yeah.
Yeah. We'll pick that winner the last week of June when our final American Assassin episode comes out. So before then, join up, patreon.com/MitchRappPod. I'll tell you, Chris, I am, as you're going to hear in this interview, I am more than happy to give away my Blu-ray copy of American Assassin. To be honest with you guys, I really only bought it to watch the extra features. Didn't really want the movie. And when I heard our friend David Brown features in those extra features, I had to get my hands on the Blu-ray. So I watched that, thoroughly enjoyed the behind the scenes. Might have enjoyed the behind the scenes and the making of more than actually watching the movie. So yeah, I don't even want that. So I'm going to give it away.
Yeah, so to change it up, we didn't want to just have, I think, me and Mike have both mentioned on previous pods that we're not the hugest fans of this movie. So in order to, not just have our biased opinions, because obviously we're heavy book readers, and no matter what, I don't think any movie, any depiction is going to live up to what Vince did. So in order to change that up, we had on our friends from the Comm Majors Podcast, who we did a podcast on their feed on the Le Carré movie, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And we've also had Brian Costello, who is a fellow Mitch Rapp Ambassador, on the pod before, and he's 1/3 of the Comm Majors. So yeah, we had them on, and I think this is I think you guys are going to enjoy this. Both Katie and
Jim. It's very balanced.
Because they're non-book readers, and they're just movie lovers. And so, but having the two of them and then having the three, Mitch Rapp, quote unquote, experts, I think gave it a good balance. And so, yeah, I think you're going to enjoy this book review or movie review. Sorry.
I appreciate their balance. It's a great conversation with them. But we can't get into reviewing anything before I share my favorite way to review various forms of media, in the form of a limerick. And unfortunately, this limerick is as negative as I am in this interview. So I apologize in advance. And here we go. There once was a movie named American Assassin. A shit show in production it must have been. What would Vince think of this repugnant flick, sending a promising franchise into a tailspin?
Wow. Oh, man. That's harsh.
At least Katie liked this film, so enjoy the interview.
Yeah.
Today we are joined by three friends of the podcast and the hosts of their very own Comm Majors Podcast. Welcome back, Brian, and
Hello.
Welcome for the first time, Katie and Jim.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
We always talk in unison.
No, we do not. And we rarely talk in unison.
We scripted.
Do you finish each other's sentences?
We finish each other's sandwiches.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Well, just don't finish my sandwich. But you guys are the movie experts, so we have you on tonight to talk American Assassin. Before we jump into that, can one of you give us a plug for your podcast?
Yeah, I would just say we're not movie experts. I would say we have a very rudimentary understanding of cinema, but we have a lot of opinions about it.
So many opinions. I would go more into critics. We're critics of films.
But not educated critics.
Not at all educated.
And Katie's not even a comm major.
Nope.
She was an English major.
No.
Yeah,
honestly, we're more ranked on quantity over quality. We
Oh,
just put out
interesting.
so much content that
Unlike the movie we saw
that
today.
that
But
eventually
you can't ignore us.
that were impossible to ignore.
There you go.
I do not want more quantity of this film. I'll be honest.
So wait, you didn't actually plug the podcast.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just talked about why we're not
yeah,
experts.
you could. I mean, each week we basically watch a different film and discuss it, whether we like it, whether we don't like it, what what we found interesting, what worked, what didn't work for us. We usually have a running tally of what the worst film we've seen that year is.
The Rookie.
The Rookie, which is a terrible, literally probably like 25th on the list of all baseball movies. Maybe even more. I don't think I've seen a worse baseball movie. I'll just say that. And there's a lot of bad baseball movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have the best movie that we
Judas
watched,
and the Black Messiah.
which is contentious because I think Brian's ready to vote that one off when we get a chance. But
He's ready for a new winner.
Yeah.
But Jim and I haven't seen anything better yet. So we'll see. So if you follow us on Facebook, you'll see what the movie of the week is, and then you can join us live while we record, or just listen on iTunes or Spotify.
Yeah,
or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, all the places.
And we were thrilled to have you guys on for an episode.
Yes.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Yes.
So guys, based on our conversation about Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, I think you can figure out how Katie feels about this movie.
Yeah.
I fucking loved it.
Okay.
Let's just,
We're going to have to unpack that.
Yeah. We're just going to have to say right from the beginning that you will never have someone on this program who knows less about Vince Flynn, Mitch Rapp, or Kyle Mills than Katie.
But now that I've seen the movie, now I know who the character is.
Now you know.
Yes.
I will never make the mistake again.
Okay. So they have not read a single Mitch Rapp book
No.
between the two of them.
We had zero expectations going into
Now, on
this
the
film.
other hand, though, we have Brian, a veteran of the Mitch Rapp world,
Yes.
a multi-year Mitch Rapp ambassador,
Mhm.
and someone who has been on a Mitch Rapp book tour interviewing Kyle. So we've got both the novice and the expert. We're running the gamut here.
It's true.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I like the movie as much as Katie. I'm just gonna before we
So
we can delve into it, we can throw, but we cover some other stuff first.
yeah.
Well, all right. Before we get into that, we want to honor you guys. As Katie said, you guys had us on, so we want to do a little home and home, have you guys on. So to honor you, we have to ask you the most important question of the episode. What's everybody drinking?
I'm drinking bourbon. This is my second glass because the first one ended up on the floor of my office.
Party foul.
And it was the
Party
end of that bottle, too, which is
That's
very disappointing.
Really
This, however, is Elijah Craig barrel proof. It is an
Very
excellent
good.
bourbon if you can find it. It's really, I got lucky finding it in Pennsylvania. It's very hard to find.
Don't drop that.
No.
Very good.
Do
Don't
not
drop
drop that at all.
I am a teacher, and the nurses at school today, as a thank you to the teachers for our hard work, gave us each a can of Corona seltzer. So that's
can?
what
One
I'm
can?
drinking.
One can. That's what
one
you're
can. One can. Yep.
One can.
In a little gift bag with other things.
Oh,
The nurse
okay.
doesn't want you to overindulge.
No,
Remember, you
just
gotta
moderation.
No boo-boos.
One little chocolate bar, a bag
Yeah,
of
because
pretzels.
if it's just a can of Corona, it's sort of like, what's his name? Like Judd Nelson in Breakfast Club. Here, Johnny, pack of cigarettes, smoke up.
That's it.
Here, Katie,
Knock
have
yourself
a
out.
can
One
of Corona.
one
Drink
can
up.
of Corona.
Teach.
That's what I got tonight.
Well, all we got at my school from the PTA recently was a succulent. I would have preferred a drinkable.
Well,
That's
yes,
interesting.
well,
that
that's fair.
feels
Token of
also like a
appreciation.
metaphor for the year.
Yes, that's a fair point. I am drinking my favorite beer in the entire world. If any of your listeners are in the New England area, it's Shoveltown Brewery, which is a fantastic small brewery, and it's their Twine Cutter, their West Coast IPA.
And can confirm if you go there for Quizzo or whatever quiz night, whatever they call it in your area, you will win. Because me and Brian showed up one night and won out of sheer,
Handily.
Weren't even trying.
and we destroyed everybody. It wasn't even
One-handed.
close.
One-handedly.
No.
And just as a plug for a great company, if any of your listeners are baseball fans, I'm drinking out of my Dugout mug, which is
I was going to mention that.
which
That's
is
pretty
a
sick.
company that takes the barrel of baseball bats,
Whoa.
seals them, and turns them into beer mugs.
Is that
and,
right?
and you can get the
I've
logo.
seen those on
Yeah,
Instagram.
you can get
They're
the
trying to get me.
logo of your favorite sports team. And by the way, if they ask where you heard about it, you can say Comm Majors
There you go.
told
And
you.
Maybe they'll pay us.
And no
Use our
limits
creator
told
code.
you to do
They don't
that.
know who we are.
Is it
No
lined
idea who
on
we
the inside?
It is.
or-
It's
what's on the
smooth-barreled.
inside? Just
It's
wood?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
finished.
they seal it.
Yeah, well, I know,
so
but I was wondering about the cold. The wood feels like it
Does it
wouldn't keep a
insulate?
beverage very
it does.
cold.
It keeps it very cold. Actually, it does a fantastic
See,
job.
that surprises me.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that.
Highly recommend.
All right.
Now, I can one-up you on the glass, I must say. with my Mitch Rapp lives.
Oh, there you go.
Very
Very
nice.
appropriate.
And of course,
Okay.
with the Vince Flynn quote, "Keep the faith."
Yes,
Very nice.
appropriate.
So do you know the origins of Mitch Rapp Lives? Where that comes from?
I do not.
That it's a reference to Tolkien. In between Two Towers and Return of the King, there were buttons made, bumper stickers that said Frodo lives everywhere.
Okay.
I think I love that. It's because that's a big thing in literature. I think is that like time in the whenever that was, 70s, 60s or 70s when that was happening.
Maybe we could get one of those Frodo Lives badges for the Mitch Rapp Museum that you guys are trying, the Vince Flynn Museum you guys are trying to get together, along with the this super creepy statue in David Brown's office.
Did one book end with him in a precarious situation, and the next one picked up with him alive?
That has, I think that has happened. That has happened, actually.
Yeah. It's not a usual device, I would say, that's used, but
No,
I think it has.
Some of the
It didn't
earlier
become a
books,
trope.
right? Some of the earlier books, they would almost pick up like a mission at the beginning that was tying into
Right.
something in the last,
Yes.
which was very rare device for him. In particular,
Right.
in between the first, second, and third book, where it was a little bit more serialized than the rest of the series.
Separation of power leads into executive power. We've got American Assassin now leading into Kill Shot. So
Yeah, of course. Then you have, which was obviously unplanned because he died. The Last Man into the Survivor.
The Survivor,
with Kyle taking over.
Chris, we didn't hear your drink though.
Oh, yeah.
What's on the
Oh,
docket?
I am drinking a local Vermont brewery, The Alchemist.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes.
Heady topper. At one point, I think it was rated the best beer in the world.
Whoa.
My buddy got some in Pennsylvania and Philly, actually. Gave some to me. It's interesting because nowadays everyone likes the haze, but when this was first made, I guess it was like one of the first hazy beers. So it says on the can, don't pour it, drink from the can, because I guess they didn't want you to see that it was hazy.
How hazy it was.
Yeah, so
That's like
that was interesting.
there's a great brewery that they're starting to expand Trillium, which their stuff is super hazy. I mean, so if you
Very
can
hoppy
find
too, no?
yes, it is. If you can find some, they have some amazing flavors and different stuff, but it packs a punch.
Well, I guess I forgot to say, in my Mitch Rapp glass is Aslan Beer Company, Alexandria, Virginia. How now, Brown Cow?
You're just nailing the literary references with
We got
that.
it
isn't
all
it?
going today.
Milk stout brewed with coffee and maple.
Oh yeah,
And I'm not witty enough to turn that into a Dr. Seuss rhyme, or else I would have had a third one.
That's
Well, you know, coffee is the most consumed beverage by one Mr. Mitch Rapp
it is.
of
With-
any of the novels.
It is.
with honey, right?
No, that's
Oh, wow.
Jack Carr.
Oh,
That's a
sorry.
different
That's
series.
Jack Carr.
Different
That's
series.
Jack Carr.
Damn it!
Yeah.
I'm trying, guys.
You're trying. That was
That's okay.
close.
You're
That
on
was
the right path.
close.
You're on the
We're going to
path.
focus on the movie.
Yeah, that was
maybe
close.
At the end,
I
we'll
like
talk
that.
about
That
the
was
book.
impressive. That was close.
The man doesn't forget a thing.
Yeah.
Forgets nothing.
Mhm.
Except
speaking of the
what
movie.
character that was about. Sorry.
Well, we don't have one of Katie's outstanding rundowns prepared today, but instead, I'll read the two taglines of
Mhm.
this movie. And Katie, since you are the master of the rundown,
Mhm.
you will get to choose which of these you like more and which one captures the movie better.
Love it.
So, first off, we have Netflix describes American Assassin as after grad student Mitch Rapp suffers a tragic loss during a terrorist attack, his single-minded thirst for vengeance catches the interest of the CIA.
Okay.
Option 1.
Okay.
Option 2 from IMDb. After the death of his girlfriend at the hands of terrorists, Mitch Rapp is drawn into the world of counterterrorism, mentored by tough as nails former U.S. Navy SEAL Stan Hurley.
Mm.
Option 2.
Option 2 wins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Easily. Yep.
Well,
Stan
there's an
Hurley.
argument to be made that this is actually a Stan Hurley movie
Mhm.
and not a
And not a Mitch
not
Rapp.
a Mitch Rapp
I don't
movie.
disagree. I don't
There's also
disagree.
an argument to be made that this film is the cover C option of Mitch Rapp. If it were a Mitch Rapp film,
We could end the episode. You just dropped the mic. That was it.
That was
That was
amazing.
it.
It's the cover C. So, Katie and Jim, we on our second pod, we break up our pods into for the books into 2 pods, and on the second one of each one, we give our final rating, and then we discuss all the book covers. We're big into book covers, and one thing that really grinds our gears is there's this line of book covers that someone thought looked amazing, but yet have nothing to do with the book.
They're terrible.
And this movie essentially has nothing to do with the Mitch Rapp series.
Oh, okay.
And it's garbage, just like cover C.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So,
I mean, so yeah, Jim and I briefly talked about this. We tried to hold our conversation for today.
Let me just tell my story of like leading into this movie, what I thought.
Right.
Sure.
So,
yeah, give us your initial reaction.
yeah. So my initial thought when Brian was like, we're watching American Assassin for the Mitch Rapp podcast, I'm like, oh, okay, great. In my head, I'm thinking American Sniper. So I'm thinking it's a Bradley Cooper movie. I know that guy, I think it ended up being bullshit. Like he lied about most of his memoir. Yeah. But I was still like, okay, I'll go into it and see if it's still like a pretty solid movie. Bradley Cooper's awesome. And then the other night, Brian's like, oh, no, we're watching American Assassin. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, to be honest with you. And then I pulled up and I'm like, Dylan O'Brien is like a tough guy, like the Maze Runner guy. And
right.
I was like, man, this is going to be rough. And I kind of liked it.
Wow.
I loved it.
To be honest, these types of movies are not really my thing. Like we just did Without Remorse. It's got like kind of a similar vibe. Right. And there are parts of that movie I like better, but as an overall experience, I think this was a better film. Like it was more fun to watch.
Right.
But there's a sequence in Without Remorse that I think is one of the better action sequences I've seen in a long time.
Agreed. So. And obviously, we were talking about how like we have no relationship to the book series, and so it's going to be a completely different experience for us to watch this movie than it is for you guys to watch the film, because we don't know how it's telling the story that the author told. We just know that it was a fun action film.
Yeah, like I would put it up there with like, in the same lines of like Taken and those kinds of movies. Yeah.
Interesting. So that's funny you say that, because when I first watched this film, I watched it with a really good friend from college and my wife, and they both loved it. And I'm sitting here knowing that like in a year's time, like I watched it like right when I sort of put it off because I'd heard, I guess I can just say it now, like on Rotten Tomatoes, it got with the tomato meter a 34. Surprisingly, the audience score gave it a 60%, which we can comment on in a second, because I guess there's how not many of those audience scores are actual Mitch Rapp readers, but
no, they're Teen Wolf fans.
Right.
True.
They're Dylan
O'Brien has a huge following. So I think that's what has propped it up. But yeah, like you guys said, my two friends, or my wife and my friend, who had no connection to the series, loved it. Thought it was amazing, good action, So I could see how, if you take your mind out of it, if we separate it from our extensive knowledge of the series and just look at it as a movie, you're exactly right. This is a better movie than Without Remorse, because that also has its own book problems. Yeah, so I could agree with that.
We also just watched Face Off, and it was so much better than Face Off that it felt like it was Oscar nominated. Like,
I'm going to offer a counterpoint, because I looked at 60% audience score. I said something must be wrong. This is a joke. I saw 34% on the tomato meter and a 6.2 on IMDb. And I said, somebody hack this, because that score should be a 0. That score should be a flat.
You dislike it that much, huh?
A 0.
That's true. You're a true hardcore hatred of this film.
I even watched it, as you said, Chris and Jim, Katie, you guys coming in blind. I watched it with my wife, who knows nothing more about Mitch Rapp besides I'm a little bit obsessed.
And she wonders where you disappear to once a week with Chris.
That is true. I get in the cave here, and locked in.
Virtually.
We turned it off approximately 10, maybe 15 or 20 minutes in, and said,
really?
And she doesn't even know the character, and said, I don't think we could finish this movie. And I am somebody who never pauses a movie. I do not even like bathroom breaks. I do not eat during a movie. I do not want to be distracted. Within 6 seconds, when the girlfriend said Mitch Rapp's name on the beach, Within 6 seconds, I said, turn this off. It's crap.
No, you were too biased.
That was rough.
I was.
That
No, I
sequence
was.
Rough.
But Rosie said the same thing. And she has no attachment to the character or the book.
That's very
either.
interesting. I would love to talk about the opening scene.
Yeah, well,
Let's get right into it.
Yeah, so I would say that that opening was, with the whole proposal, I'm assuming folks listening would have watched the movie or are familiar enough to know sort of what goes down. But he's proposing.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, he's proposing to his girlfriend in the ocean at some resort. I don't think
in Mexico.
Is it say Mexico?
Was it
Ibiza.
Mexico?
Ibiza.
They're
Ibiza.
speaking
Ibiza.
Spanish. Oh,
Yeah,
Ibiza.
Ibiza, Spain.
Spain.
They're in Ibiza.
Ibiza,
Ibiza.
Barcelona.
He does not say Ibiza, but
Yes, so he's proposing and he's videotaping. He's using his videotaping. Jesus Christ, Jim. He's using his phone to take video of the moment, and it's kind of like very millennial influencer seeming. Like this whole vibe to me was that like they live a pretty incredible life to be what seemed like
Yeah.
early 20s hanging out in Ibiza and getting and proposing
and
on
apparently
a beach.
he's a graduate student. We find that out
Yeah,
later.
that
so
was
like,
yeah.
At Brown.
Where are you getting
At
that
Brown.
money from?
Yeah. Which made sense when he was in Providence later. But yeah. And then all hell breaks. He proposes. She says yes. He says, I'm going to get drinks. He goes to the bar. Terrorists come and just start killing everybody on the beach.
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead.
reaction to that. So yeah, not so sure about your camera perspective is switching between his actual footage and then like third person camera. But definitely like it was an effect, right? So you're seeing it through his eyes for a minute. You immediately get the sensation like something's going to happen to the right, and so you're just waiting for like, how is she going to disappear? Is somebody going to come and take her? Right, like what's the thing? I was completely not expecting there to be a group of people with assault weapons, right? And one of the things for me that really worked in this film was the sound engineering. I felt like that scene was very immersive, like the pacing. So the cinematography of like the camera traveling along with the folks as they were running, and then the sound of the gunfire and of the bullets landing in bodies. Like I thought that was a very jarring scene.
It was pretty brutal. Yeah.
It definitely got my attention.
Right.
Brian, I'm curious your take.
Well, I saw this movie in the theater.
Okay.
So, last time I was on with you guys, we talked about this, but I started reading Mitch Rapp in 2000. So pretty much right after the transfer of power was in paperback. So, at this point, you're waiting 17, 18 years for a movie. You've seen bad knockoffs, of what he wrote, because there's so many movies that stole plot lines basically directly from his books, because he could never
White House Down.
Yeah, because you could never get it. You just never got out. I mean, at what point Denzel was going to be Mitch Rapp?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's where originally they were going to do. Which one were they going to do? They were going to do,
I think, Consent to Kill.
Consent to Kill. Yes,
and the script was written.
Yes, I mean, it was really getting done. It was about to go into production. So you're waiting, and you go to see it. And honestly, going to see this in the theater is the only experience I ever had. I was so excited to go see this, but I had a young baby, so I couldn't get. Usually, I go the night at the time. Like I go the night of the premiere and stuff. So I'm like, I got to go see it Saturday morning. So I buy the first ticket. I'm on the thing. I buy it. I show up at the theater and I realize I bought a ticket for the 4XD experience. Do you guys know what that is?
Oh.
It's when they strap you into
idea.
the seat.
The seats rumble.
The seats rumble and the sound effects act as if you are in the
Jesus,
film.
Brian.
So when people are being killed, it is blowing up in my ear.
God.
When you get to the end with the boat, water is being thrown onto me.
Brian,
And
I wish we
I'm
had
just
video
like, it
of
was-
you watching this film.
I
in that
had
style.
PTSD from this film.
Yeah, no,
I could not watch it for a long time.
It's like
Let
Normandy.
me tell you, it is not the film to see
When
in
you're
the
sleep
It's for
deprived,
people getting stabbed
have a
and you get
newborn?
thrown backwards. I mean, it was terrifying.
reminding you of the fragility of life and the
yeah.
anti-American sentiment.
Yeah, it was not as terrifying as
And the lack of gun laws.
Yes.
All of the things.
It was not as terrifying as the screenplay for this film, which was awful. To be clear, the screenplay is awful. I think
there's some rough stuff and
some really bad stuff.
Especially the acting in the first scene, I think, is really bad.
Yeah, she's terrible.
You are.
She is terrible. Even lying dead.
Oh God!
It like spends way too long on her face, and that is not the face. That's not the face.
No.
That's
How
not
do
the
you
face.
know?
I don't know.
You've
That's-
never seen it.
It's just not
That
the
could
face.
be the face.
It's
No,
not.
I don't think it's the face. This movie, by the way, this is to me the same issue as Without Remorse, which you guys did your episode on as well.
Yeah.
I hate origin films.
Mm.
And I feel like so much time is spent on origin films trying to set up franchises as opposed to making a great movie that would then lead to a franchise. And the great example of this is, Indiana Jones, right? Raiders of the Lost Ark is not an origin film of Indiana Jones. It was an amazing character that people want to be tied to. And then you went off and people wanted to see more of it. To me, they make a MTV version of Mitch Rapp that is playing to a younger audience, not really to the audience of the genre, in my opinion. I mean, this is not a 19, 20-year-old female audience you're targeting for Mitch Rapp novels. So I think they should have, if they wanted to do the opening sequence, which I agree with Katie, I actually thought the opening sequence was pretty jarring, ineffective.
Especially if you're watching it in 4DX.
Yeah, well, that was terrifying.
XD?
Never,
XD?
never,
DX?
ever.
DMX? One of those things?
They should have then, in my opinion, jumped forward to he's already Mitch Rapp. Because part of the problem, I don't know how much growth we get from the beginning, from after,
none.
And to me, that's like a waste. To me, this is, I think Dylan O'Brien is fine. I like Dylan O'Brien as an actor. And if they want to go young, that's one thing. I think they should have gone with a super established actor and made this a legit action film where Mitch Rapp is Mitch Rapp, because the people who are going to see this movie, by and large, are Mitch Rapp fans or people who are going to like action movies. So you don't need an MTV origin version of Mitch
That's
Rapp.
interesting, though, because I mean, I guess that does depend on how you're marketing it and who's going to see it. Because I think it probably works better for folks that don't actually know the Mitch Rapp
the
story.
fact is, it didn't make much money. It wasn't a box office success.
To me, it seems like this movie was focus group the shit out of it. Like, how can we maximize our profit? All right, let's start with American Assassin. Let's not start with a later one. Let's get a younger guy who can grow with the series. Let's get someone who is hip with the teens. Everyone will love it. So that when he gets older, like they'll watch it. And I agree with Brian. You should have picked a middle book. Consent to Kill might have actually been
Consent to Kill is
a great book to start with.
It's the best Vince Flynn novel, and I think it would make the best movie.
Like, spoiler alert for Katie and Jim, like Mitch Rapp loses his wife in that movie, like via an explosion. Like that would have just like and also that book is like 700 pages, so there's just a lot of story to go off of. American Assassin is not that long of a book, and they don't even, to me, they decide, all right, we can't have it set in what is the book set in? The 90s?
No, I mean it's in late 80s, early 90s, because it's right after the Lockerbie bombing, which was 88.
Right. So now they're like, all right, we need to set it forward, present time. We can't have it set in the past. Well, why couldn't they have it set in the past? What's the problem with setting in the past?
Right. I would have loved to see this because in the book there's so many references to 1980s Beirut, which is just such a textured, just the geography of it and the visual sensations that you could bring out on a set by doing Beirut. I don't know any other movies that I'm familiar with that have covered that time period.
Maybe Navy SEALs. Michael Biehn, Charlie Sheen.
There we go.
Check
I
it
feel
out.
like they could have captured something like that here.
They could
Instead,
have.
they
If
jumped
would-
from
would-
Ibiza to Libya to Poland to Turkey to Rome, and it just seemed like there was no rhyme or reason for those places, except they wanted to do an Italian Job-esque around the globe. You know, look at me, I'm in all these places doing action.
Yeah.
Katie and Jim, a question for you. Would you guys have had a problem if this movie was not set in present day, but set in the past?
No.
No, I mean, the only thing I was thinking of was that it would change the technology, right? So, you know, we see
Right.
them
You'd
obviously
have to change some of
using
that stuff.
Cell phones,
tracking,
Maybe for
all
the
of those
better.
kinds of things. But yeah, I don't know if any of that's really necessary for the storyline.
No, yeah, and you know what's funny is like going back to the idea of like this is playing to a younger crowd. I honestly, one of the things that worked for me and I thought was going to be a huge problem was Dylan O'Brien, and I think the problems I have with the script and the problems I have with the derivative, like cliche things of like the grizzled guy, the grizzled Yoda teaching the young guy and coming back for him and breaking his own rules, like all of, and the femme fatale and all that other shit that is just done a million times over. Dylan O'Brien as Mitch Rapp is something that we have not seen, at least as an action like star. It reminded me of Gone Baby Gone, when you have Casey Affleck walking into that bar, and I'm like, this Casey Affleck is going to be a tough guy. And within one scene, I was like, oh, this is different, and he's fucking awesome. And I don't know that I had that moment with Dylan O'Brien, but to me, it was interesting how that, like, even just his build of his body, like, subverts the idea of, like, what we'd expect an American assassin to look like. Like, it's not John Hamm or, you know, someone that's just, like, could step into a James Bond role, you know?
But
Like Gerard Butler.
Yeah.
Right.
I actually, here's the thing. I think Dylan O'Brien is good in this movie.
Yeah.
But he's just not Mitch Rapp.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
And that's-
Because we don't
that's
have
what-
So,
any idea.
we don't have-
so that's the thing. And,
Yeah.
and to me, that's possibly the problematic situation. And here's the thing. By waiting as long as they waited for a myriad of different reasons.
The studios.
Yeah, it was. I think it was. You're setting yourself up for an impossible situation in the casting of this movie, and you see it with some of these other things. Clive Cussler, right? Dirk Pitt, whoever they cast as him. I thought Matthew McConaughey. I actually don't mind that. The big example that you guys brought up is Tom Cruise's Jack Reacher. I love the first Jack Reacher movie. The first Jack Reacher movie is a great movie. I will
he's
say,
too short.
but who
Elijah Craig.
cares? See, that's what I don't. But that's my point. Like, I don't care, and because the
Yeah.
essence of what that character was what Tom Cruise was playing. He doesn't. That's why Denzel Washington as Mitch Rapp, sure, because I think he would have been able to embody like the core tenets of what that character is, which is all I really care about. My issue is this, and this might be sacrilegious, and some people who are listening, when I don't particularly like American Assassin, the book. I think it's okay. It's not in my top 5 books of Mitch
Hot
Rapp
take.
lore.
Hot take.
I just don't. You know what? And the reality is this: I was okay with them writing an origin story because of how much I was already bought in to Mitch Rapp. Just like in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Why do I love seeing River Phoenix playing Indy and having all that stuff go on? Because I love Indiana Jones already. If you don't know the character, I don't need the origin.
Well, let's be fair, dude. You already know the character and don't like the origin movie. That's a perspective that only certain people have.
True. I mean, it could be fair. I mean, and that's fine. But I just, to me, you need to have an interest. And it, Without Remorse, had the same problem, right? Like,
That's why I tell people not when they want to read the books, don't start with American
Yeah,
Assassin.
I wouldn't. I
No,
read
you
them
always
in
read
publication order.
Yes, always.
Yes,
Right.
but I think like John Clark, the reason Without Remorse, the novel works so well is by that point as a reader of Tom Clancy's work,
Who he is.
who he is, and he's so bad at you're intrigued to go into that. And that's one of my issues here is I feel like kind of like Without Remorse, they're trying to get us to a point where that end sequence and the elevator door closes on Dylan O'Brien as Mitch Rapp, and you're like, no, dude, this dude is a badass, and wait till you see the next movie.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, I don't know if I want to see another version of this iteration of Mitch Rapp.
I think it could have been, to your point, very compelling. I don't know if you call it a flashback or however you would do it, but I think it'd be very compelling to see a gritty, hardened Mitch Rapp towards the very beginning of this movie, if not the opening scene. That way, when the beach scene hits and you see him as a kid with his girlfriend letting his guard down, like, wait, what's going on? How is he just hanging out and letting his guard down? We just saw him do this, super crazy, like maybe the Tripoli scene. I think the Tripoli scene where he's being interrogated and he works his way into this cell could have been a really intriguing opening. And then you say, 6 months prior, and you show him on the beach, just kind of this wonky. He's kind of lanky, kind of guy who can't stand up to all these shots being fired. And in my mind, I would go, what the hell happened to get him from there to this Tripoli scene where he's holding his own and getting into a terrorist cell, and he mastered Arabic and he looks like he could fit in the Middle East. To me, that would have been a compelling story, because I would have said during the beach scene, holy shit, how the hell does he train and get there? And I would have bought into the dojo scene and his fights. I would have bought into him in his apartment with the throwing knives. I didn't buy into that.
That was much, yeah.
It was too early. It was too early of just, let's give a montage of him training himself to become a badass without me having a teaser of who he's going to become.
Well, here's
That's
my question.
interesting.
Can
I
we
don't
ask
know.
this question to Katie and Jim? Because they haven't read the books. As somebody who doesn't read it, in this genre of novels, there is, I think, no one that matches up to Mitch Rapp. He is like the gold standard, badass, kills everybody, one-man wrecking machine, nobody touches him, Superman character, right? I mean, he is amazing. Do you get that vibe from what's given in the movie? Or do you get the vibe that he's
Good question.
do you know, because that's one of the things, right? Like when you first start introduced as a reader to Mitch Rapp in Transfer of Power, he is already he's more than John Clark. He's more than any of these other characters. And that, again, makes you want to interested, getting to Mike's point of, that would make me interested to see how he got to that point. If I don't know that's where he's going, that's a lot of buy-in.
There's no
to
buy-in.
get to that.
So I think there's an interesting comparison to, you have a lot of movies like this that begin with somebody who is already military trained, some sort of an agent of the law, a Navy SEAL, right? Where just because of their role that they have received years of training.
Yeah.
And so this, to me, is different in that I haven't seen as many stories. You mentioned Indiana Jones, where it's supposed to be sort of your average guy, that for whatever reason has now been put into this role of, being an action hero.
Well, Indiana Jones is not an action hero.
Well, he is, though.
But he screws up more than he gets right.
Totally. But he's supposed to be like an average guy that's the star of action films. I mean, that's who he is. And he fights like a scrapper, I mean, right. he's not a Navy SEAL. He's not right. Like, he's not a soldier. But Mitch Rapp, to me, so I was thinking about John Wick, as I usually do, and how not compelling the beginning of John Wick is to me, how unbelievable the beginning of John Wick is to me, to get somebody to the point where they're going to do, and fine, he already wanted to kill people before the dog died. But this, I was like, yep, if that happened, all the fucks are gone.
Well,
I have given all of the fucks.
I will say
kill
that
everyone.
The thing that this movie does that I think a lot of action movies miss, and we talked about this when we did Face Off just last week. Terrible fucking movie. This movie, while there's insane violence and it's depicted in this movie,
God,
which
the fingernails.
I have to give them credit for. Like,
Wasn't ready.
the violence in this movie is
Intense.
it's
It is
intense
well shot.
and it is visceral.
Good word.
Yeah.
That's where I was going too.
Yeah.
You feel it in your body.
They are not like typically, and I obviously I can't speak for the genre of books, but the genre of movies that are like this are typically so flippant with death and human life in a way that the violence doesn't fucking matter anymore. Like John Wick,
right.
it doesn't matter. No one cares.
It's like look at how cool this
yes.
is when I shoot this gun this way.
And I don't
Now I'm
think you
upside
ever
down.
get that way in this movie, which I think is actually a credit to it to some extent.
True.
Yeah, I always felt the people that were dying or may have ended up dead.
Even the folks that were not characters, right? So like,
yeah,
you know,
it was
Hurley,
well done.
Yeah.
Hurley suffocates or how does he kill the MP?
He doesn't kill the MP.
Well,
he
he
just
just-
knocks him out.
Oh, I
Just-
thought he did
yeah.
at the end.
No,
I
he
thought
just
he did.
knocks him
I thought there was supposed to be a little twisty.
I thought he was
going
going to kill him.
Okay.
But yeah, so I do appreciate that, and I think having and to answer Brian's question, which was like 20 minutes ago or whatever, I don't think that I got the Superman aspect of that. But for me,
I should have said Iron Man, by the way.
you should have said something else because Superman is my least favorite comic book character ever. He's not fucking interesting. He can do whatever he wants. And so, like, to me, that would be a not interesting character for me.
It does
Right.
feel like since that incident, he has been relentless in one pursuit, which is making himself into a machine. Right?
But he's
Like,
also the moment that I love, and I don't love it, but I think the characterization moment that I kind of latched onto was the virtual reality simulation thing where they're
I
shocking
couldn't
them,
stand that.
which is dumb. It's a dumb thing, and it would have fit in really well with like a 90s movie because like we were pretending to do all that shit. And I have issues with the training sequences to begin with, but
I was going to ask you guys about that next.
but I do love the idea that like he's never going to give in to what Hurley wants him to give into. And that makes him special in a way that none of the other people will ever get to.
and I'm sorry, again, I'll be the novice in this group always. Having not as many action films or
Roadhouse.
novels, you know I love Roadhouse. I really enjoyed the training sequences because to me it was introducing a novel concept, like very specific skills that they would want in somebody like this that I just, wouldn't have considered
my problem is
before.
that it was just so derivative, and I hated. Honestly, I hated Michael Keaton. The acting and the writing. The writing for that part is brutal until he's captured. It's so cliche.
Wow.
It's just
as a book reader, I think they captured who Hurley is the best with Michael Keaton. Like that's, I think, the best casting. And they actually even use most of his lines from the actual novel. So yeah, that's really interesting.
I did not feel that way.
That-
I loved
And I
Michael
was going to
Keaton.
say,
I love Michael
out of
Keaton.
all
I
the
think
acting
he's
and
the
casting,
highlight of my.
he's the only one I would say was a
I thought he was
standout, knockout, got it right. I wouldn't say his acting was consistently knockout start to
No,
finish, and the writing
But
of his
in
character,
comparison to
absolutely
the other
not.
stuff,
a little bit of
Compared to the
Vulture, a
others,
little bit of Birdman came
he
out.
rose above.
it's the right. It's
little bit
the
of Mr. Mom.
writing.
Yeah,
It's how Hurley's presented. In just to me, it was just like oh my god, like do we need this character again?
but that's my point
Yes.
in terms of again.
Yes, but
As
this
a
character
reader-
is right 40 years old.
No, but that's the point. Like as a reader,
No, 20.
like
No,
you
this
go
book was-
back
Well,
to
I don't know
American.
how-
You go back to American Assassin, right? As a reader, you've seen Hurley, you've seen all these characters, so you're intrigued in
Is
just
he in
kind
the
of
first book? In the first published
he
book?
comes in a little bit later, and he's much older.
Yeah,
but
of
Yeah,
course.
he's like
but it's
almost dying.
but it's interesting then to see that dynamic and come back after you've established who the characters are.
But
in
like,
terms of
you know what that scene, that moment sort of reminded me of that which I honestly don't remember if I liked it or not. The recruit with Colin Farrell.
oh yes, which was at Pacino.
Pacino.
It
And
was
it's an
a- there-
okay movie, I think.
But it's a very similar vibe, actually.
Yeah.
To that.
And
I
just the grizzled guy, like I was hoping that they would give him, like, I liked the little relationship he had with the woman who is the
The
head of,
assistant director.
yeah, the assistant director.
Ugh, we need to talk about that.
Yeah, she was not a great actress, or she didn't do a great job, or the lines were whatever written was not great. But I just wanted him to be unrecognizable as like the cliche mentor in an assassin situation. Like, yeah, there was just too much of like, I just knew him already. It just felt like, okay.
It's funny you mentioned that he comes off as a cliche, because that's what I like about his character and who he is. It's just, it got swallowed up in all these other cliche things going on. The virtual reality training, because we got to do something edgy just because. And this sappy moment on the beach. And then Irene Kennedy saying, he's special. He's the chosen one. We've got to recruit him.
Off the charts.
Tropes that when you get to him, it's like, oh God, another trope. But that's
It's
so
very
disappointing.
cliche. The whole
But
movie
that's
is very cliche.
but here's the. Can I say this? This is the issue when you wait so long to do something, because Vince Flynn's work was so informing of this whole genre.
Yeah.
That other writers, whether it be filmmakers or authors, are stealing his stuff. And by the time we finally start to see his stuff,
It's been done.
we've seen it so many times that we don't even, unless you really know that this came first, you're not.
I mean, to be
connecting.
fair, he's
I'm
basically
talking about-
Miyagi.
No,
like-
I know, but I'm saying, like, in terms of like some of the characterizations and action sequences, which by the way are not done well in this movie.
Do you buy any of the fighting, shooting, hand-to-hand
I
combat,
actually thought
anything?
this film was,
Some of it, yeah.
I gotta say,
Really?
in rewatch, when I wasn't being thrown around in a movie chair, and being
And
stabbed and
actually
had,
punched.
I had real blood thrown on me, I think, at one point.
Oh,
That's
God.
how intense this
When she
thing
stabs the guy in the foot, and then the eyeballs. Oh, the
And then
eyeballs
she-
always
that was-
get
But-
me. And then she
that-
stomps on the.
There's
No,
some
I
pretty
do.
good
I
stuff.
do. I thought the film itself was.
We've had
beautiful.
3 boat scenes in the past few movies that we've watched.
This was the
This
best.
was
You
the
gotta-
best one.
Yeah,
This
but
was
I
the
hate the
best
boat
boat
scene.
action
That
scene.
this-
Oh my God,
this-
we've seen some
let,
bad
let
ones.
me tell you, the huge. I think the hugest, number one, biggest complaint is this is a Vince Flynn movie with an awful villain that makes no sense, that I don't care about, that is like
Yeah.
plot
Oh.
point.
Yeah, I was
But
I was
it's-
going to get
But
into
it's
that.
X
Tim
or Z.
from
But yeah, but
Friday
it
Night
has
Lights.
it has nothing to do with Mitch Rapp. That's a Stan Hurley thing, and they're trying to
Let's
do the
break down the plot.
parallels of how he trained
Let's get
him
into
and
the
Yeah,
stuff.
go ahead.
What do you guys think about, speaking of these tropes, we've got to stop them from reassembling a nuclear weapon.
Yeah,
And
it's terrible.
Iran is selling nuclear parts. And
It's
there's
Back to the
Well,
Future.
you could put it
So
all together.
the piece of it
That would have
that
been
I thought
awesome if
was
the
interesting-
DeLorean was in this, though. I would have loved that.
I think that we have this notion of like, no soldier left behind, no agent left behind. We're deep into the West Wing right now. And so there's a lot of that storyline of like, we've got soldiers behind enemy lines, like sending in the SEALs to rescue, right? Like rescue scenarios. And so this whole notion of sort of, if you get captured, nobody knows about you, right? Like you've got to take care of business
You're
yourself.
disavowed, like Mission
Right.
Impossible.
Yeah.
I think that that's an interesting concept, very much so. It certainly, again, it introduces that notion of like, what kind of a person would hear that and be like, yeah, I'm still in for that. Like nobody's coming to get me. The origin story to me sells that of like, he has nothing left to live for. Like there is nothing
But
for
I think
him.
what they're talking about is like the.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting
Go
there.
ahead.
It just always takes me a little while to wind up,
As you can tell, Brian and Katie talk a lot. I get in when I can, and then I get out.
And now I lost it. I have no idea what I was going to say.
Well, I would say that, yeah, the plot that is happening in this movie after the first 20 minutes is very derivative. It's very, we've seen it a million times. The thing that was interesting for me that sort of like, because after that beach sequence, I was like I was like, okay, that was really intense. I want to see where this goes. Do I buy that in 18 months he's that guy? I don't know.
No.
Because he's supposed to be an all-American. Like the thing they don't set up is like in the book, he's an all-American athlete. He's so that makes sense that a guy, not a graduate student from Brown. No offense to any graduate student.
Katie,
I mean, Chris was.
Yet.
Chris was a graduate student from Cornell.
Okay.
I appreciated the fact that what I thought was going to be the major plot of this movie was wrapped up in the first 25 minutes. And that could be bad or good, but when the terrorist cell was attacked and that guy was killed, who was like his main target, I was like, at that moment, I'm like, oh shit, like where's this going to go now? And I was actually even more interested after that moment. And the fact that the rest of the movie is sort of this, at that point, you're right, it does turn into the Hurley show because it's more his story and his letting go of Ghost and bringing Mitch Rapp up. I kind of get that like the idea of the nuclear weapons, it's like, come on.
No, but the thing that I was going to say before that I thought was believable was the notion of this abandoned agent, right? Who
Really?
like, yes, I thought that was very interesting. Of like that in theory somebody could sign up for this plan of like if you end up captured, no one's coming for you. And
to
then
me, it's
then that torture. So clearly he was tortured, right?
It's the same idea though that I had the same problem I have with Without Remorse is that I like the idea of the villain in that is like we need to create a villain so that that's not a real thing. Like if there was money involved, I would understand. And in this movie, there's money involved to some extent. But then he kind of that part gets really weird because it's like he's selling the thing. I'm still not sure why he needed. I guess he needed a physicist.
Yeah,
like, I'm not sure.
But
why
then he just kills everybody because he just wants to blow up the Navy. So it's not about. Yeah, money. Like you think it's about money, then it's not about.
But
money.
I also think like if someone was that crazy to try to do what he was doing, do you think like a couple Navy ships off the coast of Italy is something that he would be shooting for? Like that seems like
it's got to be an easier target.
You drive it. Can we be fair? Try to get it into like New York City or something. Like if you really want
to set it off.
Well, they
Vatican,
couldn't do that
right?
because they did that in the awful Jack Ryan movie with Chris Pine. That was already the plot of that movie.
But that
I will
doesn't
say
invite us
this
to talk about that final action.
I will
sequence.
say this. All of that aside, which I hate that kind of stuff when it's like derivative. I was actually interested in a lot of the action. And I was sort of interested in like where the characters were going. And while I did hate like the clichéness of the femme fatale, I actually like the idea of how they didn't really shy away from the complexities of like the intelligence community. So like the fact that she was working for Iran, right, as like as a agent, but not quote unquote the bad Iran, like I thought that was somewhat interesting.
I agree. That might have been one of the smartest moves that this movie did on its own, that it's not borrowing from Vince Flynn. And then Rapp discovering that in the field and Hurley held it from him. And you get to see Hurley being, a spy. He's working the good faction in Iran to blow the whole procedure basically and get the upper hand. And Annika is such a key part of it. And she was one of the only, I think, good actors start to finish of her role.
Although the cringe.
Why did she kill herself?
That was not
so that Rapp had an easier decision.
I know, but why didn't she just grab the gun and then shoot him or like? grabbed. I just had. I
Those
guess
are
you
the
really wanted
questions
to
when you
die,
ask
but
movies a lot you can't answer. My question is for Chris and Mike. Having gone through all the novels now, and you're doing the deep dives, talking to Kyle, you're constantly talking to other Mitch Rapp fans. What was the biggest disappointment for you? What do you think that they missed the most? Was there something like in the books that you love that they just completely whiffed on in terms of doing this?
I could say two things, but one of them is a cop-out in the sense of it doesn't actually happen in American Assassin, but the side of Mitch Rapp that is so integral to his character is him on the domestic side of things. He can make the politicians in the U.S. government quake just as badly as he can the terrorists abroad. So that whole part of him navigating the political waters of the USA that are trying to hold him and the intelligence community back by playing games, I would have loved to see that. But again, that's kind of a cop-out because that doesn't happen in the book, and it's an origin story.
Well, that
so
goes
he's not
to,
there
but that
yet.
goes to the choice of this is the book.
Right. So that's why, to me, it was a disappointment that is such an integral part of who Rapp is, and it is not presented in this movie. And so people who this is their only avenue to Mitch Rapp, or the only time they'll ever get to know him, never see what I think is like 75% of the importance of who he is. He will battle the politicians and not put up with any bullshit on the home front to create the space for the guys in the field to do what they need to. So that part was not here at all. In terms of this movie, when I watched it being a disappointment, I got to say Dylan O'Brien.
You're really not
didn't buy it. You can make a great action movie that has nothing to do with the story, and I would be okay with it. You can make a great action movie that has its own plot that doesn't check out, but you make it fun or visceral and make it gritty like we were saying this one does okay. But if your character just sucks, I'm done. And to me, you took one of the characters, one of my favorite literary creation in the world, and I hated almost every piece of it.
Wow.
Mm,
Chris.
interesting. All right, I'm not as harsh as Mike on that. I
Sorry,
thought
I'm a downer today. It's the How Now Brown Cow.
Yeah.
I
Have
should've went with a
another.
lighter
Have
beer.
another. You'll feel better.
I thought, all right, so for, again, Katie and Jim, Mitch Rapp is supposed to be this all-American lacrosse star from Syracuse University, not from Brown.
Exactly. Huge
Um,
fault by them.
That's a different
So-
person.
Huge.
I think it's
Lacrosse
fine
bro,
that,
dude. He's got a
that
water bottle filled with dip juice sitting in his car.
All American, baby.
Exactly.
An all American.
that Grizzly
Best player in the
Wintergreen, man.
country.
I think Dylan O'Brien could pass as a lacrosse star. Like, he's skinny, wiry.
Yeah.
Some of the things they went over the top in terms of how he quips with like the one shrink.
Yeah. That was rough.
Yeah, like he's at this time in the book, he's not quite there yet. They're trying to capture like some of the things that he's done
Later.
10
Yeah.
books
Yeah.
much later, but then it makes him just seem like more of like an arrogant asshole, which in the beginning we don't really get. I don't feel like we get that he's an arrogant asshole. We get that he's been driven obviously by this crazy, well, in the book it's a helicopter airplane attack, but in here it's the beach attack. But yeah, that was my biggest thing, is like they sort of, I was okay with the casting, but they just got him a little bit off. And then Jim said it right off the bat. It seems like more of a Stan Hurley movie than a Mitch Rapp movie. Like Michael Keaton is the main star of this movie, not Dylan O'Brien.
I
And
just
the whole second half of the plot line too.
Right,
How it shifts
because
to him and Ghost.
the villain has nothing to do with
Mitch Rapp.
It's all about how Hurley fucked up and let this guy go, which is not from the book at all. And now Mitch has to clean it up, barely, and then
But that's
we
a
can talk
side
about
story.
the end scene.
Is
too.
it the main story? Is that
Well,
a side plot?
Yeah, is it the side story?
I don't
Is it
know.
the main
well,
story?
I always argue this, and I see this without remorse. All these things. I've always been an advocate, and it's becoming more and more common now. And Jack Carr's doing it with his series. Books translate better to short form series.
Don't even get me
Yeah.
started on what happened to my favorite book.
What's your favorite
the
book?
Dark Tower. We don't bring it up. It's very.
Now here's
Still
the
haven't
thing.
watched it.
Leading
Still-
The fear is that
leading-
The movie was bad, right?
No,
watched
we
it.
don't bring the.
leading up
Would you
to
like
the,
a How Now Brown Cow?
Yes,
maybe
Penny.
I haven't
We're
watched
gonna
it.
watch that.
The-
Jim
the-
refuses to watch it.
Now here's the weirdest part, like sort of the opposite of what you guys are dealing with. They cast Idris Elba as Roland.
Brilliant cast.
We were so excited.
I was so excited. Like, granted, Roland's a white guy with blue eyes and
Doesn't
whatever.
Who
Doesn't
cares? Yeah, great
Idris
example of it.
would totally nail the everything about that character. They cast Matthew McConaughey as the villain, the Man in Black. Like, literally, and so if you're familiar with The Stand, the walking dude role is the bad guy in The Dark Tower as well. Same guy, perfect fucking casting, both characters. And then they take what is almost like 7,000 pages worth of book and put it in an hour and a half movie.
It's an 80-minute. I don't even know if it got to 90 minutes.
That's so rough.
But
Yeah,
they-
two
so-
How Now Brown
but
Cows.
Yeah.
but so that's my point. So it's like interesting to me. If you are going to do American Assassin, do it as a series, and you're
Mhm.
building with Dylan O'Brien, and we're going to see that wrap. If you are only going to give me 2 hours, you need to give me like all out insane. And this is my problem with Without Remorse, where I think they should have just made it Rainbow Six movie. Give me that action, that sequence in Russian Without Remorse. Give me a movie of that.
Yeah.
That's what give me without, I mean, even Without Consent, which I love. I had concerns about them turning that into a movie because it's so long. Just give me Mitch Rapp as a badass. Kyle Mills, and this might anger people, but I think Kyle Mills' Mitch Rapp books are better suited for a film. Like a lethal agent.
I could see that.
You know, it would be a good, like one of those where he almost has that Mission Impossible vibe, like in the last book in the airplane. We've talked about that before. Like that to me is cinematic. You can package that up. You can put that in a 2-hour, 15-minute movie if you want to do that. Or I could see Kyle's as a series. But I think if you're going to do Origin, you have to say we're going to invest 8 episodes in American Assassin and then keep building Dylan O'Brien. I don't think it translated in an hour and 50-minute film.
Right.
You don't get the intensity. You don't get that stuff that Mike's talking about, the fighting on the domestic front. And I think that the thing that really set me off of this movie is I hated the Irene character. She's my favorite character in the entire series.
Yeah, she's mine too.
And I like, to me, it wasn't even the act. I just didn't like the character. It didn't.
The writing was terrible. Her dialogue
like
was
how
But
she was
just
written.
her didn't
Yep.
feel like what that relation, all of that to me is
the way
heart
she
of
talked
this
to
show.
Hurley. There was nothing
It
in
was
me that
forced.
believed
Yeah.
that she knew him for her entire
And-
life.
and that's like
like
the core of
Yeah.
the early books, which I loved, was Mitch Rapp is mysterious, and that mystery adds to the excitement of that character. That
Right.
you don't know as much about him, you don't know everything about him, and that makes him a more interesting character. But his relationship with Irene fleshes that out. And then Stansfield and her, and like the triangle of that. And Stansfield is a throwaway character in this film. And that, as just a reader,
That was tough to see.
as a reader, bothers me. But I also think it sets up a generic film. I think this is a generic film.
yeah.
Which is hard when it's a book series of 20 some odd books that you have, and which is probably would be Jim's issue if he ever tortures himself
Yeah.
and watches The Dark Tower. How do you turn a 7,000 page opus, this amazing story, and all you can produce is a less than 90-minute film in The Dark Tower? Like, what are people doing?
Sony's terrible. So two things. One is a little bit of a hot take, and two, I'll start with the second one. Did you guys tell Kyle that I thought he was a middle reliever for the Braves? I hope not.
I don't think
we-
anyone's talked to him since.
We
Kyle
haven't
is,
talked to him since, but we're going
he
to.
is currently living in Spain now, I believe, right? He's made
Yeah.
the move. He's made the move to
Ibiza?
Spain.
Not the beaches of
Ibiza?
Ibiza.
He's had a Biva.
2 drinks, make them strong. That part, first off, if you're a lacrosse bro, That is not how you fucking order drinks.
Yeah.
I don't care if there's a language
drinks.
barrier. Language barrier. The one place there is not a language barrier.
You're at an
ever is a fucking bar.
all inclusive. You say, "Give me the freaking bottle,"
Yeah.
and I'm going
That
back into
bartender
the water.
Might have been my favorite casting of
It
the
was-
whole
it
entire
was-
time.
It was
He
pretty
just walked
good.
off a
actually.
golf course like he was a golf pro somewhere, and they were like, "Hey, dude, come here and be the bartender. Speak sort of Spanish for the scene."
What was your second thing?
My second thing, the thing that's weird for me for the Mitch Rapp stuff is his name for some reason.
Oh, come on.
It's just a 2-syllable thing. I have a hard time with it.
All right. There's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah,
So
I know.
can we please talk about the ending of this film?
Yeah, let's get to the
Yes.
sixth
Because-
fleet. Katie, tell us.
Be-
What do you think about that?
Because number one, the bomb always gets diffused.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
Every action film I've ever seen, they defuse the bomb.
Katie was on the edge of her seat.
On the edge of my seat. Two, I don't think we've ever seen, I haven't, what would it look like for the naval fleet to actually prepare for a nuclear detonation?
Yeah.
Right? And so, again, like visceral reactions. Watching soldiers put on gas masks and hold on for dear life.
Clearly,
thinking,
you forget watching
is it.
Hunt for Red October, which we actually did on
yeah,
our
I
show.
did
and
watch that.
occurred.
All right. Anyway, we're gonna just pretend
There was no
didn't happen.
nuke in play there.
The sub was going to melt down.
Felt
Remember?
a little different. Anyway, I just wanted to say I was. I said to Jim, I was like, "This can't be CGI." I thought that looked incredible. So they did aerials of the boats. You could see the naval officer folks, soldiers. I keep using the word soldiers. You can tell I don't have any of the words. The people are on top of the boats, running
Sailors.
about, and then the camera lifts, and you've got the whole fleet. You get the immense nature of these ships, right? And then you're in the cabin. Like there was a lot of just it felt very personal.
Mhm.
On top of it feeling massive. And then to
Right.
watch that bomb go off and see the impact and the time that took and the way that they let it play out, I thought that was an incredible scene.
It's funny because they have such amazing moments like that with such a cliche moment of the captain
Yeah,
being like, I
right.
should shoot the boat.
Yes.
It's like, why?
The
I
waves
wanted to
to
say
this movie. It's
that
like-
was the coolest cinematography and like actual planning out of how you're going to film and make this scene feel. That to me, I almost want to say that was one thing I liked about the movie,
Say
but I
it,
roll
just say
my
it.
eyes because the plot, I'm just like, the nuke in Rome made no sense to me, and then why would Ghost want to hit this fleet makes no sense to me. So I wasn't bought into the plot of it, but the filming of it was pretty cool. And
Yeah.
then here's like a meta thing, and I definitely want to get Brian and Chris's take on. I almost am really happy if this was a conscious decision. Did you see a little Memorial Day in this scene?
Well, I made me wish they had actually filmed Memorial Day instead
Right.
of this film.
the biggest sin is choosing this one instead of another one.
I
So
don't think
that
the
is
people
biggest
involved in
disappointment.
this film have read Memorial Day.
You think so? That's the problem. All
With
right,
the
in the end of Memorial
helicopters.
Day, spoiler
Yeah.
alert, Mitch finds the nuke on the water and then has to take it on a helicopter and drop it into a mountain.
Yeah.
And the question is, are these people, have they heard of that before, or are they remembering it? Do they know
I
it's specifically a
I
Vince
would
Flynn
venture
thing?
a guess of no about that. The best part of this movie might be in the film extras where David Brown gives an interview. He's actually in one of the DVD extras.
Oh,
So
really?
you can actually hear him. He was on the set of the film.
I actually
this-
picked up the Blu-ray just to watch that.
Just
and
to watch the
other
David-
features, which I still have to do.
Here's my question for Katie and Jim. Do you want to read a Mitch Rapp novel after seeing this movie? Or
good
would
question.
you want to see a sequel to this movie? Because the
Yes.
reality is,
And
Good
yes.
question.
okay, because
Wow, I love it.
but that to me is
the
had
goal,
to be
right?
the goal, right? You have to
Right.
draw people to the character to read the movie, and then you have to see another one. That's the only reason to do the
Well, I
origin
don't think
story, in my
I don't
opinion.
think I don't think when they're making the movie, the books
They don't really
are,
care about people coming to read the books, but
Yeah.
but I would. I did watch this and think this is the kind of action novel that I
Yes.
could get
Well,
into.
you know what's funny? Yeah, and Brian knows the type of stuff I read. I never read stuff like this.
No.
I would say I would be more likely to watch the sequel to a movie than to watch.
To read the book.
Yeah, but I do think there's a problem at the end of this movie, which is like, for me, it's kind of like you do need to jump ahead 5 years here, or this is just kind of like, okay.
I'm not giving this an F anymore. Katie, you're
gonna give it a D+?
declarative yes to wanting to pick up the book.
I was
It
thinking
goes
about
from an
that.
F to a D. It really does.
Because you asked me that with Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which for me was a snooze fest. Like it did not make
was.
me
It
want.
We should
it
get
didn't
Katie
make me want to read anything.
I don't disagree.
We should get Katie to apply to be a Mitch Rapp ambassador.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We're making the push.
Seriously.
We're doing it.
We got to get David Brown. Somebody. We
I
got to
did.
get arcs for Jim and Katie. They only need one. They can share it. We got
I
to get on the
watched this
line.
and I thought, I get why these guys
We
really
got to get
enjoy this
David.
character.
Get in
Because of
touch
that
with
answer.
David. and
Yeah,
get him.
Absolutely.
No, I like.
I'm going up from an F to a D, and I'm making it my mission to get you a signed copy of the
Yes.
next book.
Could we-
Because
I'm
you
in.
right there?
Maybe you'll
Summer,
actually.
I have so much time to read.
Maybe you'll
Send me
actually
that book.
finally watch my interview with Kyle now, since
Now
you
I
guys didn't
will.
watch it.
You know what's funny? Is like,
I might go to a D plus.
but I think that's part of why I like this so much is that it's not my first go-to, literary style or literary genre or movie genre. Like Brian knows Katie and I did not love John Wick, which is
No.
like sacrilege among
understatement.
most
It's an understatement.
action movie folks. This, even though so I find almost all of these movies cliche in almost their entire story arc and everything that happens. So like the moments in this that the action felt different than other movies, and the fact that I didn't see Dylan O'Brien as like an action star, but as someone who is, and they could have done a much better job here. I'm not saying they nailed it. I didn't see him. I felt him as someone trying to figure it out and go along the way. I think that's where this movie could have like vastly improved, but probably would have been moved even further away from your idea of Mitch
Right.
Rapp, which
Well,
is like
and-
in the beginning, don't show me a guy who's quipping to the psychiatrist. Show me a guy who's like barely holding it together, but still able to infiltrate a cell.
Well, people forget like the true intro, the absolute true intro to Mitch Rapp in the literary series. It is quite possibly one of the best chapters ever wrote. The intro to who Mitch Rapp is in Transfer of Power, when he's like hiding out in that alley that's there. And I think that's the problem. One of the things, I think the big issue with this is this movie from the very beginning was going to go one or two ways with true Mitch Rapp fans and Vince Vaughn fans. They're going to be the people who felt they had to get on the wall and defend it because they've been waiting forever. And they were going into that movie and almost nothing that was put on screen was going to matter. They were going to say it's amazing because it's Mitch Rapp. And then you had people who were walking in there, like every novel that's turned into a film, and it's not going to meet their vision of who Mitch Rapp is in their minds. Because again, the great thing about reading is you're the director, you're the cinematographer, and they're going to hate it. And
That's
so
me with most like literary interpretations.
and that's like
so.
when I talked about Without Remorse, I went in and said, I have no expectation this is going to be anything like the book. And it clear, even less so than this was. And it still didn't meet the expectation for me. This one, there were moments that I felt like the Vince Flynn novels were creeping in, and then it would like go away for 5 minutes.
Right.
And then I would feel like it's starting to come back in and it's going away for a minute. And again, I wish, and this is never going to happen because this was a $33 million budget, which back then was a decent, you don't see these mid-budget movies anymore. So it had to be a franchise. I with all of Hollywood, I wish they would just make a movie to make a great single movie. And if it's good enough to deserve something else, then you do it. And I think there's enough source material, even if they did a completely original Mitch Rapp movie and said, we'll steal a little bit from this, we'll steal a little bit from that, and we're just going to make this amazing. Like, you know what, the kind of a spoiler, but you guys did Without Remorse already, so it's not a huge spoiler. Give me that Russian sequence in Without Remorse when they are in that building. Katie and Jim, you remember that? Like,
yeah,
that's
it's the best. It's the best.
Give me that in this movie. This is what Mitch Rapp is. If you're going to choose to ignore all the intrigue of the domestic front, then just give me badass Mitch Rapp, Iron Man with Scott. Give me all the guys, have him turn it into a mission, a real-time mission, and give me that movie. Or give me a TV series.
And so, did they kill it? Is this done? They're not doing another?
I can't. By the way, I don't think it made enough. And honestly, I don't think it's unfair to say within the community of Mitch Rapp fans that this is not a super well-received movie. Is that a fair assessment, or am I off base with that?
Yeah, no. Even when we talked to David Brown, the publicist, he was very, he wouldn't like come out
diplomatic,
and say he didn't. He was very diplomatic about it, but if you're being diplomatic about it, then that means you don't like it. Like
It's
you either
funny,
like it or you're diplomatic about it.
But
so.
I didn't even know this movie exists.
Right, exactly.
Again,
that's a bad thing. That's a bad thing.
But that is not the fault of what we saw on the screen.
I'm trying to think when it came out, 2017.
There's a
Listen,
ton.
this is the thing.
Before we,
Trump
I just want to say,
America,
this is, as far as these movies go, this is not awful.
This is I
No,
completely
there
agree.
are much worse.
You know what this is?
That I knew existed when they came out.
This is a movie that is watchable. You watch it, you think, hey, you know what? That if you don't have investment in it at all, if you have not invested yourself in it, you say, you know what, this is okay. Dylan O'Brien, okay, I don't know.
It's a good summer blockbuster.
Yeah,
it's a good summer blockbuster. They should re-release.
It's not a good summer blockbuster. It's a good movie that HBO would have on at 10 o'clock at night.
Let's do it.
And someone, goddamn it, give Taylor Kitsch a good fucking role.
Oh, well, he blew that with Battleship.
I know. Was it Battleship?
That was Battleship.
John Carter.
Well, and John Carter. Those were his back-to-back films.
But those weren't good movies.
And the awful second season of, whatchamacallit?
I don't know.
What's the Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson show?
Oh, True Detective.
True Detective.
Yeah, he was okay in that.
Given a shitty character and shitty lines.
Yeah, but I don't blame, by the way,
dialogue.
do not blame him at all.
No.
Don't blame him at all. I think here's the thing, and this is insane. I think this movie came 10 years too late or 3 years too early. If it comes out 10 years earlier, you have a bigger star. You do Without Consent, and it's massive. You do it 3 years later, this is bought by Amazon,
right,
or Paramount, or Netflix, and you get a series. And I think either of those options are better than what we got here, which to me is almost a middle option between those two ideas.
You're right.
For a fan, you get people who have no connection to it, Katie and Jim, who watched it and said, yeah, you know what, there's some stuff I like in here. I'm okay with that. And, maybe I would read a book or watch another one. Unfortunately, not enough people who felt that way. But you don't do enough to galvanize the base. And this character is New York Times #1 bestseller every year. That's a lot of people, right? I mean, that's like a lot of people that you can tap into. And as Jim said, this movie's not even on the radar. And that's like surprising to me.
But what I was saying by that is that I don't think this wasn't a movie that was bad enough to bury.
No, it was just it just happened, right? Yeah. It's a film that it's a film that happened. But my issue is this: it's a film that just happened. But this is a character that consistently since 2000, every year basically, is the New York Times #1 bestseller. That's a lot. That's a lot of books. And the movie is kind of like it happened. And quite honestly, there's not a lot of people on social media who even talk about this movie in the community. It's
Well,
always about when's the next book. There, you know, like you would think that this would be something that people would be like, hey, this is the 5th anniversary of this movie. It's the 10th anniversary of this movie. And it's almost like been it's almost like raised the Titanic for Clive Cussler fans. Nobody even talks about it.
The only social media buzz around this movie that has lasted is, hey, who would you cast as Mitch Rapp? That's the only way this movie is talked about in the Mitch Rapp universe, is recasting the person they chose.
But to be fair, like how many franchise books, novel series
don't even get made?
Well, no. How many have been successful?
No, true.
None.
That's true. It's hard to do that.
Like Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, right?
Bourne, but the Bourne movies
not
are
even-
nothing like the books. They're
But
nothing. They don't
even-
even touch the.
But that speaks to your point on you can write an original story and you can do it well with visual storytelling in that medium, with good writing in a screenplay, and pull it off. And you can actually capture the fan base
The essence.
who liked the book and liked the character and say, huh, that's also a good movie. And wait, that is Jason Bourne too. You could do that. So it's rare. It's hard. And CBS Films was not the ones to try it in 2016.
I was so shocked when I saw CBS Films pop up. I was like, what?
Yep.
It's will always be interesting to me because I think I'm harder on the film because of the love of the character, and you've invested so much time in reading the character and stuff like that. But it's just also unfortunate because you want so much to see these stories that you love in another medium. It would be interesting in some way. And I want to say I guess we could classify this as a failure. It was not a box office successor. The failure of this movie has made future films very limited. And, you know, with Vince's death, I don't know what his family's desire to sell the property in another way would be. I don't know what Kyle's involvement in being able to do a series or something like
just
that
do 12
is.
episodes on
But
Netflix
I also
or Amazon
think
every year.
but I
and be
also
done
think
with it.
this, there's so many other shows like this now that it's like, unless you're a diehard fan, somebody else is going to see it and just say, you know what, I've already seen this. This show's been done already, and we don't.
It's crowded out with The Gray Man coming up and Jack Carr, his James Reese series coming up,
and they have huge stars, right? They deliver. Gray Man is
Chris
delivering.
Pratt.
Gray Man is delivering Ryan Gosling and Captain America. Like, that's a pretty big cast. And then Chris Pratt is starring in the other one, and you're countering, no offense, because I actually did enjoy him, you're countering with Dylan O'Brien.
Right, exactly.
Like, that
3
to
years
me,
too early.
like, who's going to choose to see that?
Right.
Which is heartbreaking.
Well, that was awesome. I really enjoyed talking the movie, but we need to get out of here. But before we do, I would like your guys' final ratings, and then Mike has prepared a little bit of a game to end quick little game to end this episode. So, all right, let's get our final ratings. So, Brian,
how do you rate?
Feel free to give us
you can give us anything
or
you
letter
want.
grade, up to you.
I would say 5 out of 10. C in the C, maybe 6 out of 10 in the C kind of range. You know, depending, somewhere in that ballpark. Watchable, but
I'll let you go last because it'll be
not something I'm going to
note.
revisit quickly.
End on a positive.
Yeah.
You heard me. All right.
So,
Jim?
So I would say that if I was grading this on Comm Majors, it would be like a C minus.
C minus. Okay.
But if I'm grading it on the curve of like this genre, I think I would be more likely to push it to like a B minus or something up there. Yeah.
Okay. I'm more like a C plus, like because I've gotten the experience of, I guess people like Katie who don't know anything about it and they really enjoyed it, so I can appreciate that. So yeah, I'm at a C plus. Maybe close to reaching a B minus. All right, Mike.
I've said what needs to be said.
I think we got you to a D plus. I heard
We-
D
You
plus.
did raise. We did raise.
All because of
You
you
were-
wanting to
you
go.
were-
Ryan grades it a 4DX.
Yeah, I am
Very
still emotionally scarred from that experience. I'd be willing
All right,
to.
how about you, Katie?
hard.
I give this a B plus. I find this infinitely
All right.
more rewatchable than many action films that I have been asked to watch.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Very good.
Somebody loves it.
That's what we want.
And we'll get you that arc. We got to get you that arc.
Well, you guys, I
I
got to
will
give you
wear
a
the
shout out
T-shirt.
on the
Arc.
Comm Majors.
Yeah.
Fantastic games. Always having a good time with your guests. And so we want to keep that alive with a really quick game we're going to call Higher or Lower. So this movie got a 6.2 on IMDb.
Oh no.
Is the IMDb score for these other action films I'm about to read out higher or lower than
Oh,
American
boy.
Assassin? And you can't look them up.
Okay.
No
Fair enough.
No
No, you don't have to
Phones
worry
away.
about
No
that.
typies.
Since we
Maybe
talked
it's
about
over.
it, let's start with an easy one. We'll get Katie's take and then Brian's take, then Jim's take. Without Remorse. Is Without Remorse higher or lower than a 6.2?
On IMDb, I
IMDb.
think Without Remorse is higher.
I agree. It's higher. That's the Michael B. Jordan factor.
I think it is lower.
I said lower.
Well, let me tell you, 1 point for Brian. Without Remorse has a 5.8 on IMDb
Wow.
currently.
I
Tom
agree.
Clancy,
I agree with
Tom
that.
Clancy has some
That's fair.
angry fans.
That's fair.
Man. They're angrier than the Vince.
Oh, see, I didn't think of that.
they don't.
that's
Yeah,
true.
they are.
One
not
other
happy.
movie I think you guys have certainly covered, and Chris and I have talked about, Tenet.
Ooh.
I'll go first. I think Tenet's probably higher.
I agree. I think Tenet is rated higher.
Yeah.
Tenet is higher.
Well, everybody's getting points.
Good.
7.4.
Yeah.
7.4.
I think Tenet's one of those movies that's kind of bad, but it makes you feel a little bit stupid, and
Yeah.
so then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to.
Yeah,
Right,
that should
they
probably.
make
Yeah,
Tenet
that's probably-
is-
that's
it should be
probably
good.
It
That's
should be
good.
probably
Yeah.
good, right?
It is not,
Tenet is a good movie.
there's a lot of failures of storytelling in Tenet.
Tenet is a good movie. It's not a great Christopher Nolan movie, but it's
That's
certainly better than
I'm
this
not
film.
sure you covered any of these next ones, but
Oh, no.
we're going with San Andreas.
Oh,
Oh.
I
haven't
don't
seen
even
that.
know that movie.
That is with The Rock
Oh, that's the
and Carly Giacchino. and,
Right. Like
yes.
the earthquake.
The eruptions,
Yeah.
the earthquakes, that's it.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's probably. I don't know. There's no angry fan base for that, and The Rock. So I'm gonna go higher.
I'm gonna take a guess that it's lower.
Okay.
I'm going to say higher because people love The Rock.
Well, in that case, I think we have a tie game
Yes.
because it is lower, 6.1.
Katie. I can't. Yeah.
Katie gets the point for that
And
one.
I'm losing.
Tied with
Brian.
Brian at 2 points. All right, last one we'll wrap up with here. Terminator Genesis.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I'm going to go first. That movie is absolutely lower than
Yep.
this because
Lower.
people despise that film.
Same.
Yeah, it takes a special person to actually go on the internet and rate a movie, by the way.
That is true.
Keep that in mind here.
It's like sports radio, the people that call in, I am going. Yeah, I guess I got to go lower. Actually, I'll go high. I'll go.
Oh, you tie it up at the last minute, make it a tie game. It is higher at a 6.3, 2 points
All
for
right,
everybody.
Really?
We have
I
a
gotta
few,
be fair. I gotta be fair. I don't even know which one that is. Is that the one with the girl from
No.
Game of
Game
Thrones?
of Thrones.
Is
I don't
it?
even know which
think
one
No,
we're
no, no.
talking
It's the one with
Christian Bale
Christian
and
Bale, right?
Oh, I don't care.
Sam
I still would've
Worthington?
said- I still would have said lower because they're all awful. Anything,
Is it
any
Worthington?
Terminator movie not directed by James Cameron should not be called.
The only reason I went the opposite of them is because
So you
for
could
the
win.
opportunity to
yes,
tie.
And there it pulled off. You took that gamble.
I
and it
don't
worked.
know if I want to watch any of those movies.
Here's the one that would really piss me off. You know what I'm sure is rated higher?
Way higher.
Face Off.
No. Oh, yeah. Face Off and John
Face
Wick.
Off
People
and
love
John Wick.
John Wick.
John
way
Wick
higher.
is a
Both.
good movie.
It's
Would you
not a
stop
good
with the John
movie.
Wick.
Well, actually, you
The
know,
action's better in this than John
we
Wick.
talked about Tinker Tailor, so I'm actually curious.
You are
Since the
correct,
Two movies
Katie.
we talked about.
Mhm.
Where's Tinker Tailor?
7.2.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Tinker Tailor's score is certainly higher. It was nominated for an
Yeah,
Oscar.
just thinking about the population that would
Yeah.
watch Tinker Tailor.
I would
Higher.
watch Tinker Tailor before.
But you have to remember
Yep.
this
Higher.
movie's low because there are a lot of people that the majority of people that probably were interested in seeing this
Are Mitch
did
Rapp
not like it.
readers.
Yeah.
Or
and
teenage
yes,
girls.
It's a smaller.
Right.
Granted, great
No, I
reasons
just-
why they wouldn't like it. Yeah.
I agree with Jim that I think not many people knew about this film. I would be interested if this film was
I thought this was a Bradley
re-released
Cooper movie.
and publicized
Well,
and direct to, right? Like
Bradley
the
Cooper
same
is-
this might be
scenario
a
we've seen
shocker.
without
I
Ray
was the only person at the 4XD screening. Again, that could be because
Shocking.
I was almost
No, but
injured.
seriously, like
Good,
I
'cause
was
you probably
injured
wet
in
yourself.
who
conjunction
that
of
was
that.
not a Mitch Rapp fan knew about this movie? I
well,
didn't.
there was
And I love
enough.
Michael
It
Keaton.
still
the-
made
the,
$60 million or something.
the Teen Wolf Wiki, the blog, the Teen Wolf blog was there.
So I
didn't
still
even
don't
know
know
he
who
was
this
in
guy
Team Wolf.
is.
He was
I
in the
still
Maze
think he's
Runner.
Adam Brody.
He's Maze
He's
Runner.
not Adam Brody.
he
Can
is
you
a
look up
Mets
Adam Brody?
fan, and he's a
Okay.
super cool dude. And he's his movie came out during the pandemic, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's supposed to be fabulous. So like, no knock on Dylan O'Brien. I don't blame him for this at all. Like, you got to jump into a potential genre film, and I thought
Yeah.
his
Get that money, man.
yeah,
I
I
didn't
don't
think he
blame
did a bad
him.
job.
I
I
do
don't-
have a
I
soft
don't-
spot for some
I-
of the young adult science fiction stuff. So
Mhm.
the Maze
I don't
Runner
blame
kind of
him.
hits me.
He was good in that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank you
guys.
guys
Oh,
very
this was
much.
so much
That was
fun.
awesome.
Thanks for having us.
We loved it.
You guys will have to pick the next movie then.
Okay, deal.
All right, guys. We hope you enjoyed our discussion with the Comm Majors, and we highly recommend you going if you want deep dives into a plethora of movies. They're always doing something new, something old. Go give them a follow. They're a good listen if you like movies as well. So next time we will be bringing you American Assassin Part 2. Sorry, we took a break on that. We gave you this instead. Hope you enjoyed that. Again, I need to thank our patrons. They help support this pod and wouldn't be anything without them. So our special operator, Sherry F., our special agents, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Thank you very much. Please, can't say this enough, subscribe, rate, review us using your favorite podcasting platform, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. You can find us online at Mitch Rapp Pod or at Twitter or Instagram at Mitch Rapp Pod. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch.
Do you have a catchphrase that you end with? Because I think it should be, that's a wrap.
Oh,
hey now.
Please, guys, don't do that.
Please, absolutely.
It's
You are
normally
Just
let Mitch be Mitch.
Irene
Oh,
gets
It's
it.
a
that's a
line.
good idea.
It's a line from.
And
Irene
please make
says it.
sure next time you talk to Kyle that you have Katie involved in the interview.
We're getting her a book.
No, she finally. I think we finally.
We've cleared
Yeah.
the confusion.
Yeah.
And I also now understand that Vince has passed on.
Yes.
And so Kyle has I get it
Taking
now.
up the
It
reins.
really
Yeah,
is
finally.
like Nancy Drew and Carol. This is the comparison I made the last time, and now I get it.
yeah.
Nancy
If
Drew.
it took this movie to
Rapp.
get you there,
Yeah,
I'm there.
earn
well,
that D+.
this
got
movie
it.
achieved
Got it.
something.
Earn that D plus.
Thanks, guys. This is a blast.
All right.
Yes, thank you very much.